The question is this: was the handshake a license to burdening Kenyans with punitive public debt, punitive taxation, punitive food prices, and a high cost of living? The Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury should not sign any new loans, including floating sovereign bonds, during this transition period.
All right, that is Musalia Mudavadi from Kenya Kwanza's side of politics. He's speaking about the public debt, that there are different figures. They're putting it at over 11 trillion shillings. The budget committee is putting it at 8.2 trillion shillings. We'll be listening to some members of parliament who in the budget committee as they spoke about that statement of Kenya Kwanza. Listen.
The current level of debt is 8.2 trillion and not 11 trillion as alleged by some quarters.
Kama mumekwisha na messaging, narrative yenu imekwisha, mumeshaona sasa kuna kitu kingine, wacheni whip emotions of Kenyans, stop inciting poor Kenyans. We have a bigger agenda.
If there is any one individual whom Kenyans should always hold accountable for killing our economy or bringing our economy to where it is Honorable Musalia Mudavadi. Why do I say that? During his tenure as the Minister for Finance, is the first time that Kenyans recorded in our books, go to the books of Central Bank, and controlled overdraft, which Kenyans have never heard of 37 billion.
On one side you are saying BBI is bad, then when BBI is gone to the drain, you come and tell Kenyans want to increase. That's why I'm saying Kenyans are not stupid. The only people who have moral authority to propose any change to equitable share can only be those members who supported BBI.
So much going on, but there's also the blame game at the top. The two leaders who would appear, and I say would appear to be the top contenders for the presidency of this country, are at each other. Listen.
Sisi tumesema mara mingi kabisa ati gharama ya chakula inapanda. Hawa jamaa wamekuwa ndani ya hiyo serikali, hakuna chochote wamefanya. Leo wanajitokeza wanasema ati hiyo bei chakula imepanda si nini, wanajaribu sasa kumumbaza wa Kenya. Unafikiri wa Kenya ni wajinga sana.
You are the cause, you are the author of the problems we have. You can never have the solution to the problems which you have created.
So where do I begin? I would want to begin with you. No, not you. To begin with you, Dr. Chris Wamalwa. When your side of politics says that Raila Odinga is the cause of the challenges that you're witnessing, that the runway public debt is because of this administration, and in that press conference, standing side by side with Musalia Mudavadi, is Kenya's deputy president since 2013. How should Kenyans read that statement?
That statement was trying to reflect the current situation at the moment. And public debt, as Kenya Kwanza says, it is a very critical component that is going to form part of the agenda of this election. Before the handshake, the public debt at that time, we are told it was around 4.5 trillion, okay? And post-handshake, the government went into excessive borrowing because it had gotten a suitable compromised partner in the form of ODM in the National Assembly. In 2019, we passed a motion in Parliament putting a ceiling of public debt to around 9 trillion, okay? But as we speak right now, and that, by the way, that 9 trillion was supposed to go beyond 2022. That's what we passed in 2019.
It was supposed to be June 2024.
Yes, actually June 2024, you're right. But looking at the excessive borrowing that the government has subjected to Kenyans post-handshake, it is like that handshake was an open check for the government to borrow anyhowly, and this is subjecting Kenyans to a lot of torture. And it has reflected in terms of the inflation rates that have gone very high, and as such, they've increased the cost of living. As we speak right now, Sam, We are told the government is bringing another motion in Parliament to extend that ceiling of borrowing. In many jurisdictions where we have the growing economy like Kenya, the rule of thumb is it's supposed to be 50% of the GDP in terms of public debt. When Kibaki left the government, the borrowing at that particular time was around 40–45% of the GDP. But as we speak right now, the Jubilee government, particularly after the handshake, the ratio of public borrowing the GDP is almost 100%.
So how do you attribute that challenge to Raila Odinga?
Now let me come to that. Raila Odinga was leading the opposition side. Ordinarily, they are supposed to provide oversight of the government, like things like excessive borrowing. But when you come to the floor of the House, where you find the majority side and the minority side, all of them are skewed towards the government side. How do you provide oversight? He ran away from his position of providing oversight. Some of us were kicked out from the leadership positions. When you come to the floor of the House now, Sam, the problem we have in Parliament, the House Business Committee that is supposed to run the day-to-day operations of Parliament does not reflect the reality on the floor. It's only the majority and minority are skewed one side, whereby they bulldoze the government activities, and that's where the problem is. So we don't have proper oversight. So Raila Odinga, after running away and going towards the government, they went to bed with government. So the element of oversight was lacking.
Okay, I'll get back to you, but Honorable...
Is it oversight or numbers?
Sorry?
I think there's confusion here.
No,
we are talking oversight or numbers.
I'll get back to you. Honorable,
I can clarify.
Just hold.
Due respect, Honorable.
I told you not to get distracted. Honorable Mbui, so when you listen to these voices, and these are parliamentarians who are speaking to us, and we know that the House of Parliament is supposed to be doing that oversight, and now you take a whole responsibility to the leader of ODM, what are we supposed to read?
Yeah, first, Sam, you know, I want you to kindly stop ignoring One Kenya Alliance, because you talked about two contenders for the presidency. And I want to say that there are two antagonists, but there are more contenders.
I said that would appear. Use the word appear.
So there are two antagonists, but there are more contenders for the presidency. One Kenya Alliance being part of it. Sure. But I think this boils down to who exactly can you trust, because people will speak from both sides of the mouth. And I want to say that even here in the studio, we've had my colleague here who has said that UDA members of parliament from Central are more than the total number of, members of parliament from Central. So, I mean, who can you trust? So when you listen to all of us, I think Kenyans need to pick the people that are speaking the truth. And let me talk about the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is something that we passed in the National Assembly. And I want to point out that, because we need to demystify this story. When this debt ceiling was being raised to 9 trillion on the floor of the House, those we are calling the UDA stalwarts, the diehards. The leader of majority at that point was Aden Duale. The chair of the budget committee was Kimani Ichung'wah. So these are the people who are in charge of the budgetary process in the National Assembly at the point when this debt ceiling was raised to 9 trillion. Now the law is very clear. You cannot go beyond the debt ceiling. The law is very clear. Yes. In fact, the reason Parliament passes a ceiling is so that it caps the amount, the total amount that the government can borrow. Now, unless somebody has got some kind of evidence to prove that Treasury has gone beyond what is mandated by Parliament, which unfortunately will now be an illegality, and that means they can be actually held to account and serve a jail term. So I think we need to be very clear. So I think here it's an issue of trust. Who is speaking the truth and who is lying? There is no way that the government can borrow beyond 9 trillion because that ceiling has been set. Of course, even the fact that we've reached near the 9 trillion, that has also affected, as my colleague has said, the cost of living. It is a fact that Kenya is very expensive, and inflation has really pushed the prices, especially of basic commodities and food. They've really gone up, and that's a fact. But the reality is that we cannot sit and pretend that the leader of ODM is the one who's going to be blamed for raising the debt ceiling when Aden Duale was there when Kimani Ichung'wah was there, and those are the people now that are blaming Raila, who was not in parliament when this was being passed. So I think we need to be honest to each other, and the fact is that it is an issue of parliament. Now, the fact again remains that parliament as constituted is supposed to represent the people of the republic. And if there is any failure, I think parliament needs to take the blame. We cannot push the blame to somebody outside the house. In fact, even now we are about to do our budget policy statement. We'll pass our budget. Whatever passes from the National Assembly must be blamed purely on the National Assembly, not people who are outside there, not even the CS for Treasury.
Okay. And Honorable Sossion, what's your take on this conversation?
I think we've got to be very clear.
Who's responsible?
We've got to be very clear. There is a chief executive of the country. All other systems are simply triggered and controlled. And so we cannot run away and begin behaving like nobody can take responsibility of the public debts in this country. And Sami, if I can give you the trend of public debts in this country from the previous presidents, when Moi exited, the domestic and external debts in this country totaled to 650 billion shillings. And Moi was encouraged to borrow. But he said, I cannot borrow and burden many generations of Kenyans. They must be let to be economically. And Moi retired with a modest domestic and external debts of 650 in this country. Kibaki retired in 2013 with an expanded domestic and external debts of 1.25 trillion.
No, it was 1.8. Sorry, what did you say?
1.25 trillion.
That is for external or total?
External and domestic debts.
It was 1.8.
Yes, in April, and if the figures, April 2013, and if the figures, okay, let's accept 1.8. Yeah, because we want to talk about facts and figures. 1.8 trillion. And look at what Kibaki had done. The roads had been fixed. Micro small enterprises had prospered very well in this country with 1.8 both domestic and external debts. In just 9 years, we are at 8 trillion. Okay, let's assume we take the figure of Kanini Kega of 8 trillion compared to 1.8 and 650 billion. You can see we've taken the country out of this world in terms of borrowing. And what is the money doing? It is purported to be channeled to development projects. We are not borrowing to invest in production, which makes the country. And so there is a big issue. Kenyans have a big issue with the borrowing, regardless of which arm.
This has happened while Kenya was having the 11th and 12th parliament. Was it aware?
Yeah, definitely. All arms will have to take responsibility, but the greatest responsibility rests with the President of the Republic of Kenya. And so that's the CEO.
Does it make sense for you, for Deputy President to appear alongside...
No, let us not look like... Yes?
No. To come and tell Kenyans that Raila Odinga is responsible...
If, for example, let me take you, and I've said it and I'm still repeating. If, for example, you've not had a cabinet meeting since February 2021, where do you expect the president to speak about these issues? And you look at the changes in indices of prices, there's increased high taxation on farm inputs, increased taxation on fuel, and if you look at the changes even in prices of commodities, the last couple of days, which is destroying Kenyans regardless of ethnicity. Look at maize flour, it has shifted in January from 49 to 53, the wheat flour from 126 to 144, but there are changes in prices, and so let us not narrow down these issues of debt to trying to condemn, to check who is responsible. Is it the deputy? Is it the president? Is it parliament? By the end of the day.
Hold on. Honorable Sossion, let me read you something. And the reason I'm asking these questions is because you're allied to different personalities at different times, because you're still
most of that time.
Nominated MP of ODM, so your party leader is Raila Odinga. But now you want to move to UDA, so your leader may be William Ruto. And I'm looking at the Constitution, Article 95, talking about the role of the National Assembly, which is to appropriate funds for expenditure by the national government and other national state organs, and also exercises oversight over national revenue and its expenditure, and so many other responsibilities. I do not see the responsibility.
I'll give you a straight answer. I'll give you a straight answer. Let us not pretend. I'll give you a straight answer. Who appoints chairs of committees of the National Assembly? Is it not that we have seen parliamentary parliamentary groups going to State House and chairs of committees and leaders of the House, business and all that? Is it not done at State House? It is done. And let me tell you, if we don't watch out, Parliament has lost its autonomy in this type of arrangement where chairs are picked from State House and they are chaperoned on what to do, so that the president has actually hijacked the institution of the National Assembly.
I hear you.
That's the truth.
Let me do a quick
Parliament, independent institutions are under capture. Parliament, constitutional commissions, maybe the only institution that is struggling to be independent is the judiciary. And remember the parting shot of Justice Maraga. So when institutions are under capture by a head of state, what do you expect? Yeah, thank you.
See, I told you the other time that we ask questions, you respond, you clarify, we move on to the other panelists. And
no, I think what happened is that when we hear these kind of comments, we have to be worried about the quality of leaders Kenyans are likely to produce if they go and don't clearly analyze them. Quick example. The Kenya Constitution, the 2010 Constitution, those who have served in it only in the Parliament may have an illusion about what it is to be under the executive, where Parliament actually plays a very peripheral role. In the 2010 Constitution, it removed the executive from Parliament. And for that reason, every member of the National Assembly is actually to be oversighting the government, whether you are in opposition or on the government side. Now, when you talk about the leader of official opposition or leader of opposition having failed, I do not know which exam you would set up for him when he did not get the mandate to run the country. The people who got the mandate to run the country are the president and his deputy. And you have seen the hypocrisy in it. Where things are good, we did this together, we are taking credit. Where there is stress, oh no, we will not allow this thing that has been, confusion that has been brought by this stranger. No, but very quickly, if you talk about appropriation of money, if you talk about budgetary process, or increasing taxes for the fuel or the food, it is done by Parliament. It is the VAT Act or the Appropriation Act that you pass, and the appropriation bill that burdens Kenyans with the taxes. And usually, the executive, after they have approved, they come to Parliament. Now, the majority or the minority party, who are the opposition now, they don't have the numbers to pass those things. It is the government which passes. And unless they say they ran away from this government that time, then you can say, you can listen to them. But what you need to understand very quickly, when we have members of government who have decided they are not in government, now they are in the opposition, that is where the confusion is. When they are going to the podiums and the things they are talking, Mudavadi himself the other day was condemning the lifestyle of the deputy president and all the government good days he is having. But today, he thinks now it is Raila, who is the state project. He doesn't complain. So, please, my friends here, they are lying with the statistics. In the sense, from the day to when the government increased through Parliament, actually, when Parliament approved the 8 trillion from 7.
9 trillion cap.
No, I'm saying you approved to 9.
Yes.
Yeah. For that time, the previous ceiling was 7. Now you approved to 9.
Something.
In between, you will hear people ranting in the public rallies saying, oh, this thing has been, we are borrowed, we are now up to 11 billion. They don't tell you. This association doesn't tell you. When I was a member of Parliament, when Moi left office, my salary was at 3,000. Today, it is $1 million plus. Now, when you say the same budget Moi was running around is the one Uhuru is running around, we are not being fair. He will tell you the kind of, let's say even the package of allowances for members of Parliament alone. Just challenge that. The borrowing we have done a lot of infrastructure, buildings, when it is roads, when it is water, even though most of it was stolen in the first 5 years, the money that went into infrastructure, nobody is talking about it. They are saying borrowing. It's like you are borrowing and flashing it into the sea.
Do you have a problem with where the public debt is at the moment?
No, I don't have a problem. There is no country on earth which has moved or which is not borrowing. Go to the United States. It is almost 10 times the GDP. They are borrowing. Go to Japan. The money they have borrowed, it is beyond 300%. No, actually 200%. So what is the problem with Kenya? Borrowing is like it's committing a crime. They want to scare people with these messages about borrowing. So when they get in, they will actually borrow and they steal everything. And they have, we know that they are taxed.
I want us.
They will not borrow anything, I can assure you.
I want us to listen to something, about the cost of living of what Kenya Kwanza members of parliament have been saying, but it has also gotten some response from Azimio la Umoja, or leaders from Azimio la Umoja. Let's listen first to what they're saying about the hurting economy.
Bei ya gas iko chini ama iko juu? Bei ya mafuta ya kupika iko chini ama iko juu? Bei ya kibiriti iko chini ama imeenda juu? Bei ya chumvi imeenda chini ama iko juu? Bei ya sukari iko chini ama imeenda juu? Hawa jamaa wanatuhadaa, ni lazima tuwafurushe tarehe 9 mwezi wa 8.
Vile inji iko sasa, bei ya chakula mwananchi wa kawaida hawezi. Bei ya mafuta ndiyo hiyo. Bei ya mbolea mkulima wa kawaida hawezi. Bei ya mbegu hawezi.
There is a debt crisis in Kenya. Even our development partners are concerned about the debt crisis in Kenya. It is only those who do not understand this country that they can say they cannot see the debt crisis in the Republic of Kenya.
Right now, as we speak, the public debt in this country is about 100% of the GDP. The public debt in our country is more than 11 trillion shillings. Na katika hiyo 11 trillion shillings, 7 trillion imeombwa wakati wa handshake.
Listen to the cry of Kenyans. Kenyans are not crying just about the cost of living, the cost of food prices, the cost of fuel. Kenyans are suffering. Listen to them.
Huyu baba ambaye atakuja kwa rais wetu wa 5 aliongea mwaka ya 2015 2015, akasema serikali ya Jubilee inafanya overborrowing, overstealing and overspending. Miaka 6 iliyopita. Leo ndio Mudavadi na William Ruto wamegundua ya kwamba serikali inachukua deni.
Mashamba wapita nayo, mbolea wapita nayo, mabwawa ya maji wapita nayo, vyakula katika magala wapita navyo. Alafu wewe wasimama press conference kusema bei mpanda. Namna gani wewe bana?
Dr. Chris Wamalwa, when you retire to bed in the night, after listening to what those leaders are saying, all the way to the deputy president and these elected leaders, Kenyans are truly hurting, the economy is doing badly and they are suffering, but the leadership is whining just like them. What do you think about?
It is very, very unfortunate, and we empathize with the Kenyans. And why this link to leaders? When a matter comes on the floor of the House, there's something called parliamentary group meetings. PG meets and they take a decision on a matter on the floor of the House. So when you come and say that the members of parliament make decision without input of their party leaders, it is wrong. When you look at the recent Political Parties Act, at that time, many parties met as PG and they made a decision. So when even you go back during the 2019 motion in terms of increasing the debt ceiling to 9 trillion, political parties met at that particular time. So the party leader plays a critical role on whatever decision is made by his members of parliament on the floor of the House.
But does he take away the right of an individual member?
It is taken away. That is why when you look at the Political Parties Act, there's aspects of party discipline. Anybody going or voting contrary to the decision of the party, he's de-whipped. So really the party leader controls what goes on the floor of the House.
And so, Dr. Chris Omala, if that's the reality, then what should we do? Because the Constitution talks about that National Assembly represents the people of the constituencies and special interests in the National Assembly.
Yeah, that is the ideal situation, yes. But the reality on the ground as we speak right now, you saw recently when you were debating the Political Parties Amendment Bill, parties came up with a stand. Even at that particular time when we were doing the debt ceiling. And that is the time when we had the handshake was in place. And that's why I'm telling you, in Parliament, we are captured. The agenda has been hijacked, particularly when the minority group came together with the majority group, they control the House Business Committee, they make decisions on which matters come on the floor of the House. Many members have come up with bills, and they don't see the light of the day, because House Business Committee is controlled by the leadership of the minority and majority, who are now in handshake. So this one interferes with the independency of Parliament. So as we move forward, you've clearly stipulated what is stipulated in Article 95 of the Constitution, that Parliament is there also to debate and resolve any matter of national importance. But we are captured. So in this case, during the Kibaki time, when you look at the rule, when I talk of the rule of thumb, we have some studies which have been done, and the rule of thumb in a developing economy, it is advised that the borrowing to the GDP should be around 50%. That is the rule of thumb. But when you go to countries which are developed, like Japan and the US, those ones in terms of borrowing, they've gone to 100%. Kenya right now, our public borrowing, the GDP, is 100% as if it's Japan or as if it's USA. We are not yet there. And that's why you are telling, if your salary is 10,000 shillings and you are going to borrow 10 million, tell me, how are you going to be able to pay back? It is impossible. And that's what I want Honorable Mauka More to see the difference. So you cannot compare United States or Japan with Kenya, which is a growing economy. So the public debt is at a high level, and that's why the debt has gone to Kenyans through levies and taxes. So the cost of living has gone high. And that's why we are saying this is a matter that must be controlled. We can't run away from it.
I hear you. And Honorable Mbowe, I'm just wondering, I've never heard Dr. Chris Omala so eloquent on this matter. He's here in studio speaking about that. The leaders spoke in a press conference, but you don't hear this in Parliament. How then should we take you seriously as you come to ask for our votes this time round, that are going to fix the challenges that we have, if you're to tell us that the state capture of the state organ?
I think some you've just kind of hit the nail on the head. And this is really a major issue of integrity. When we were elected, we swore to uphold the Constitution individually. We all took an oath. And so when I listen to my colleagues trying to blame our political parties, I am surprised, because I have gone against a position that had been taken even outside the Parliament by the leadership of the party at one time when I felt that the interests of the people that I represent were being tampered with. So I think it's important that we let's accept our failures as Parliament. I think that's a bottom line, and stop pointing fingers. On the matter that Honorable Sosiona has raised, he says that chairs of committees are appointed by someone. The reality is that that influence is there. But the standing orders of the House ask that members of the committee elect their own chairs and vice chairs. So if we as Parliament have failed to protect our interests as parliamentarians, then why do we keep blaming the executive? The executive is also trying to get its space in the political leadership. So I want to say that we must accept our failures. Now, on the issue of public debt, the issue of public debt, when this ceiling was raised, and I want to clarify this because sometimes people don't really understand what the issue is. When the debt ceiling was raised to 9 trillion, the intention was to settle some of the local expensive debts so that we could get concessionary loans that were a lot easier, that have lower interest rates and longer repayment periods, which are good for the country. And the reality is that actually borrowing isn't a problem. Even in private businesses, people borrow. The big problem is what you do with the money that you borrow. Now, I think Kenya's problem is that some of the people in public office have stolen a lot of public funds. Money is appropriated, money is borrowed, money is given to carry out development projects, but a lot of that money ends up in people's pockets. I remember a case that was highlighted in the media of 21 billion that kind of disappeared from nowhere because there was a dam, I think one called Aro and another one called Kimarer, that already, even before the ground was broken, even before the feasibility studies were done, 21 billion had already been spent. When that was reported, I had the deputy president say that it's not 21 billion, it is only 7 billion. And I thought, if the deputy president can say only 7 billion is lost, then why would we be crying here about high food prices and all? If we are comfortably saying that it's only 7 billion.
His words were the money in question.
The money in question was only 7 billion. So is it okay to lose 7 billion? That's what I'm asking. So when you listen to people speaking podiums out there, I think the reality here is an issue of integrity. I think people need to be real. We have failed our citizens, and we must accept to take responsibility and stop pointing fingers where it's not fair.
All right. Honorable Maure, when you speak to your constituents, Igembe North constituency, and they tell you how much food prices have gone up, the cost of living, the cost of school fees, I mean, how do you explain to them? Because you're in government, I mean, government to say one of the arms, but also you're a leader, meaning that you, in the pecking order of the leadership of Jubilee, you're also somewhere. What do you tell them? And what do you promise that you're going to change in their lives?
I think what we are suffering from, unfortunately, is having a very large chunk of our leadership being very dishonest. If you look at the commodity prices worldwide, and I mean worldwide, they have gone up more than double in the last 2 years. 2 years ago, the price of fuel was actually almost in the negative. By last year, it was $34. Today, it is over $90. Now, when you have international systems that come into play and they interfere with the fuel prices, for example, it impacts every item of what we consume on a day-to-day basis. So when the prices go up, and then you stand there and they start inciting Kenyans are hurting, they are having problems with milk, they are having problems with the sugar, they are having a problem with you don't tell them there are international issues.
But the milk is in Kenya.
No. I'm trying to tell you the milk in Kenya, I am a dairy farmer myself, I know the cost. It has almost doubled in the last 2 years.
Because of the farming?
The cost of input. It is not the government that has been selling inputs. It is the cost of these other issues like fuel. The energy prices worldwide have gone 5 times in the last 2 years. Now, it is very exciting to come and tell somebody, oh, I know you are hurting, I know you can't afford this one. Majority of Kenyans are in that category who cannot afford many things. So when you come out there and they start inciting them, how will you become even their leader when you are also a leader today and you are not providing those solutions? It is Parliament which he should mobilize those numbers. He says he has more than the President to come to Parliament this afternoon and stop everything and bring down all these things if they can, because it's Parliament.
But in Parliament, Honorable Maure.
No, I'm not whining. I'm not complaining. I'm talking to those people who are.
Do you think there's a problem? I ask you this question. Yeah. Is there a problem? Do Kenyans have?
No. A serious problem for everybody.
So what solutions do you propose?
I'm assuring you there isn't an immediate solution to this. Even everybody who will tell you there's a solution is a liar. Even them, they are not giving you a solution. They are just inciting you. And they want to be cheered. Of telling, so you have seen this guy who was the MP for Kikuyu. He was chairman of the budget committee when these things were being increased in 2018, October. Pardon?
He still is the MP for Kikuyu.
No. I'm saying he was the chairman of the budget committee when they were increasing all these food and the VAT.
Okay.
Yes.
So, Honorable Sossion, what is the solution out of this? You want to be a senator.
Let us not cheat Kenyans and tell Kenyans that there are no solutions to their problem. If that is the case, then we should not have leaders in place. In fact, what you are talking about here is leadership to deliver. If we get down to the borrowing, the question is, this borrowed money, where has it been directed to? The fact of the matter is, this country is reeling from mega corruption within government. This money has been directed to one sector called development. Development area in any economy, if you direct money to development, it doesn't produce. And in development projects, it is where it becomes pocket money of individuals within government. Now, Mauka Maore, and I would like to ask you very clearly, don't you think it is reasonable we promote and protect the agricultural sector? Protect the coffee farmers, protect the milk farmers, protect the tea farmers, protect the sugarcane farmers, protect the fish farmers.
How do you do that?
Now, when you borrow, you should direct money to the production sector. That is an area that has been deliberately neglected. If you neglect farming, and you look at the taxation here, high taxation on farm inputs, then you're simply killing farming. And if you're killing farming, you're killing the income of the ordinary Kenyans. Where do you expect the ordinary Kenyans to get money to buy their basic commodities if you are killing the very production sector that needs to be promoted? You are borrowing money on behalf of the citizens. So that money should be channeled to critical areas that touches their life. The production sector has been neglected all through. You look at even the manufacturing, agro-processing, value addition. That is not, this borrowed money is not going to the production sector. It's not supporting the micro, small, medium enterprises. This is one component, the production sector of the economy.
So who needs to do
that? If we are borrowing and money is not directed to those areas, and let's look at Kenya. What is happening with the sugar industry? It is collapsing. What is happening with the fish industry? It's collapsing because we are getting fish from China. What is happening with the milk industry? Sometimes we have the market flooded with foreign milk.
So let me ask you this, because you want to go to the Senate. Because the functions you're talking about are squarely under devolution. They're devolved functions, whether it's agriculture or what you're saying, dairy production. So who exactly should do this, and what responsibility does the national system of governance
We have a constitution.
have to do?
Sami, let us not engage in so many narrations and getting going around as if we are in a literature class. We have a constitution. We have a nation to take care of. We have a tax collection system. We have governance systems in place. And we have abused governance systems, and we are not being sincere to Kenyans. And that is why I've said very clearly, the production sector has been deliberately neglected and isolated. And it is the production sector that connects with the ordinary mwananchi. And that is why the ordinary citizen is reeling in poverty. When prices are pushed up, with citizens who can't earn any money whatsoever, then they cannot, many Kenyans cannot even buy sugar.
You know, I'm looking for that solution, and you've told me that you need to invest in this sector.
Yes, I'm a trade unionist with basic knowledge in economic backgrounds and what is important with the citizens.
Don't get distracted. How do you channel that shifting of how you invest in the production sector? How do you do it? Because there's that governance structure as stipulated. Who does what?
And that is why there has to be a balance in investment of national resources. And this is where I tell you, Kenya Kwanza is very clear in pumping 100 billion shillings annually to agro-processing, to manufacturing, to value addition, and to the very sectors that affect the farmers. And this one is very clear. And when you look, you can consult any economist and all other experts. And this is going to spur employment of many youths, regardless of the different skills and shades in the economy. And countries that have succeeded, he has quoted Japan. Japan is invested in the production sector. We've quoted the US. They're not borrowing to do super capital, luxurious expenditure, but they are stimulating the production sector of the economy, where jobs are created, where salaries are earned, and where the business activities are promoted and supported. And this is where we've gone wrong in this country. The big elephant that we are talking about is actually about governance. We are abusing the Constitution. And I would like to answer what Mbui talked about. I had this experience in Parliament. We elected a chair of the committee in 2017, Honorable Keter, to Labour. But the entire membership of the committee were chaperoned to State House. And within 1 week, there was a motion filed, vote of no confidence, on a chair who has not served even for more than a week. And the leader of majority was chaperoned to come and sit in the meeting. And that change was made. Those who voted Keter this week and they were members of Jubilee really did change. And that is why I'm telling you, we are dealing squarely with governance, hijacking and capture of institutions.
Okay, all right.
And if we are to allow the Constitution to operate freely, institutions to operate freely, allow Parliament to operate freely, allow Constitution Commissions to operate freely, allow judiciary and all other institutions to operate freely, and we cut down on corruption to zero, then stimulate the production economy, then we will have a better country. That's a fact for sure.
Very brilliant ideas coming from the members of the 12th Parliament. Thank you.
It was me.
Yes.
Thank you,
Dr.
Sam.
Chris Amalo, you know we're running out of time.
Sam, there was a misconception which I thought I should clarify.
Yes.
When you borrow, there are two critical things you have to look at. One, you look at the payback period and the interest rate. And the Kenya government, when it comes to borrowing, of course, concessional loans are much cheaper and you pay at a long-term period as compared to the commercial loans. And why we increased, at that time, why we increased the debt ceiling from 7 trillion to 9 trillion is because at that time, when Kenya government wanted to borrow, World Bank looked at the laws and said, whatever you want to borrow will go beyond your ceiling. So if you want us to give you this money, please go and amend that law and increase to 9 trillion. And 9 trillion was made to take care of this country up to 2024. When you do it on a pro rata basis, by now, we should not have even reached the 11 trillion. You should be somewhere down there. So what happened? After we passed the law, the government was to get the concessional loans so that they offset the commercial loans, which are actually very expensive. And these commercial loans, mostly they are domestic. You are competing with the local enterprises. So to us, it made a lot of sense. But when the government borrowed that money, we've never even gotten a report in Parliament in terms of the domestic loans, the commercial loans. How much was set off using that concessional? There was no full disclosure. And ideally, when you borrow...
Have you raised these questions in Parliament?
Ideally, when you borrow, I'm coming to that. Ideally, when you borrow, you are supposed to borrow for development, not for recurrent expenditure, for heaven's sake, the way Honorable Sossion has clearly put it. So now, when you borrow heavily, you are obligated to pay back. So how do you pay back? By increasing taxes and levies to the common mwananchi, and this increases to high cost of living. When you look at the price of fuel, Honorable Mauka More has mentioned about the cost of fuel, the barrels, it's standard worldwide, yes. But why is it the price of fuel, a liter of petrol in Uganda is different from a liter of petrol here in Kenya? This is because taxes and levies. When you look at the price of fuel per liter, 60% of that cost is a result of levies and taxes. And the government is forced to overburden the common consumer because it has borrowed heavily. I wanted to bring that connection so that people can be able to understand how high cost of living is coming as a result of high borrowing, which you must pay back. And for you to pay back, you must...
Petrol is cheaper in Uganda than Kenya?
Absolutely.
Yes. No, that's not true.
And it's taken through.
No, it is. I know. The other day I was the other side, and people are crossing over to go the other side to get fuel from that side. So look at maybe you look at the exchange rates because Kenyan shilling is stronger. But overall, in terms of the percentage of levies and taxes, Uganda levies and taxes are much cheaper, lower than Kenya. When you buy fuel, the contribution on that liter, 60% is going to levies and the taxes because the common mwananchi has to pay. So on the way forward,
from my source,
just
hold on, because I need to hear from the two members of Parliament. From my source here, a liter of petrol in Uganda is 1.3 US dollars. If I convert with the rate of 115, it comes to 149 shillings. In Kenya, it's 129 shillings.
Okay, maybe we need further research and see how you're getting that. Because the people I've been talking to, they've been actually going across Uganda to go and fuel. Even the cost of beer, they say we go to Uganda to drink and we come back. This is to tell you the taxation in this country in terms of taxes and levies, it is higher.
All right.
So what we're trying to put across is we must borrow wisely and let's borrow this money so that it goes into development. And as I said, the rule of thumb in a developing economy, the borrowing to the GDP should not go beyond 50 or 60%. It should be average there. Kenya right now, it's 100% like the United States and the Japan. The two economies are totally different. So we have a responsibility as Kenyans. We as members of parliament, when you go to the floor of the house, let's not allow our party leaders or PG groups to come and be able to under duress so that we don't debate
Honorable Mbuyi and Mokomore, I have only 2 minutes, so each of you a minute. So how do we change this in the 13th Parliament? Because when leaders whine, sorry to use that word, just like Kenyans, we get lost.
Yeah, thank you. It's a fact that Kenya's taxation is high, but taxation is passed in the finance bill in the National Assembly, where all these members of UDA and all other political parties can make a decision. But you know, Sam, when I listened to Honorable Wamalwa here, he raised the ceiling to 11 trillion just here in the show quietly, and I've heard Sosion and Wamalwa contradict each other. Sosion says borrowing for development is wrong, and Wamalwa says he supports that people should borrow for development. The reality is that yes, because he said it is a waste. He said the borrowing for development is the problem. And you said it should be for production. That's what you said. That you shouldn't borrow for development, but you should borrow for
in development
you shouldn't
and
invest.
recurrent.
Yes, you shouldn't invest in development. You should invest in production. But let me ask you, how do you produce if you don't have energy? How do you produce and you don't have a proper road network to deliver your goods or to bring your inputs to your place? So you must have development. These things support each other. So the fact is, a farmer that you are saying we want to support, the farmer who does dairy farming cannot even refrigerate their milk because there's no energy, because you are against energy. You are against a good road. You are against development. Let me tell you, we must develop the country, we must borrow. The thing is, let us use the money wisely. Let's not lose the money. Let's borrow wisely and spend wisely.
Okay, Honorable Maureen, what's your takeout from this conversation?
No, I believe that the country needs to take new leadership next year. Next year means August 9.
Okay, yeah.
When we do...
This year.
This year.
No, I'm saying, that's what I've said. I've corrected myself. Now, when we take good leadership, we will be able to change the direction the country is moving from where leaders come out and say, we are going to give you laptops when they know they intend to give you wheelbarrows at the end of the 5 years, at the end of 10 years. We need people to go also and understand the budget or the policy statements being done by all these leaders, that most of them are meant to wink them into believing that these people mean well for them. They don't. So Kenyans need to open their eyes. They need to worry about where we are headed. And the only problem or the only solution is good leadership and the good policies and a leader who can actually go and deliver what he has promised. Thank you.
They're all looking for seeking election. Still same seat, Gembe North?
Yes.
Kathiani?
Yes, yes.
Governor of Trans Nzoia.
Governor Trans Nzoia, Senator Bomet. You make your choice. Flavian Mulama is saying the Sagana 3 is a tribal meeting with a specific agenda of dealing with the DP's influence in Central. The president, as a symbol of national unity, should avoid this incitement against the DP and indeed Kenyans who support his bid. Abdirahman Ali, the president has right to assemble his supporters politically anywhere in this country. Kenya Kwanza Alliance will be shocked to hear Mount Kenya has rallied behind Uhuru. They unite for a purpose. Let those who wish division to forget their ill intention. Conrad Kulo, the Kenyan budget grows. The budget Kibaki and Moi worked on is not the same budget Uhuru is operating on. The salaries and benefits of state officials are abnormal. Let's be honest. Let these leaders take a pay cut. Will you? Okay. Otieno, you say, our MPs are a big failure to us. They crucify us, then pretend to help us cry now. Big enemies. Before food prices are lowered, let them lower their allowances and salaries for no work done. Wow. Omele Vincent, there is confusion here. Interestingly, Ruto currently is with the people playing opposition on hashtag lower food prices, while Raila with the executive is playing the government opposition attacks. The government defends, very interesting. Then Kiprop Kenya, public debt is a burden to all the people. In fact, it is a curse to the population. But let us be realistic. The only way we can fund our budget is through borrowing. But who do we blame? I blame corruption and our leadership. Okay, in a country like ours, where politicians keep flip-flopping like toast coins, it's so dangerous to rate economic growth or lack thereof on roadside declarations and press conferences. Then DY9, you're saying, shouldn't leadership be about the values and the beliefs that they are the leaders are to fight for, the greater good of the electorate? Every parliamentarian should be to blame for the current state of economy. Kenya Kwanza is an equal accomplice to Azimio. Wow, that's what Kenyans are saying. And just to tell you here that we are the ones who elect leaders. Maybe you should also take responsibility for what we get. I don't know, unless we ask questions. Thank you all. Moka More from Igembe North, Wilson Sossion, nominated MP, Dr. Chris Omalo from Kiminini, and Robert Boy from Kathiani constituency. Thank you for making time for us. And this conversation continues. Up next is Matter Social. Stay tuned. My name is Sam Gituku.